Welcome to PoliticIt podcast. We've got Mike Kennedy here tonight.
John, it's always good to be here.
Yeah, so pretty cool convention. Tell us a little bit about what your thoughts were there. You guys came out over, you got over the threshold. You were the only one that came out of convention.
We worked really hard. So there were 10 that filed in this race, and I and two others only went through the caucus convention process. The rest were all gathering signatures. Some, it turns out, were successful, 4 of them, and the rest were not successful in gathering their signatures. But that convention, and I don't remember if you were there. Were you there all?
Yeah, I was
there
the whole time.
The whole day?
Yeah, I did.
Because it was a busy day.
We got there at 7 o'clock in the morning.
I was there at 7:30 a.m. and we left at 12:30 a.m. So the next day, the next morning, we were out of there. So it was a long day. And preceding that, of course, John, part of my big thing is I've always, for 10 years and numerous election cycles, gone through only the caucus convention process. So I called. There's roughly 1,100 delegates on the list for Congressional District 3, and so I called and reached out to every phone number I have. I think I reached out to all of them. Turned out there are about 900 there at convention, but it's been a privilege to work with those delegates. They're smart people, they're motivated people, and they are all over the district as far as rural, they're along the Wasatch Front, representing many different viewpoints as to the needs of the district. So called and talked to those people at numerous events, and then, of course, we get to convention, which is a key day for us. We had a big thing to do there, and that was we wanted to make it as the only one that gets out of that process, and to do that we needed to get above 60%, which we did. We were at 61.5%.
Yeah.
Very proud of that, but it took six rounds of voting to do it. So initially the vote came out. I think the initial vote we were at 38% and split up amongst others. It dropped 2 off and then just kept on going.
So you were in first place from the very
We were
beginning.
in first place. The next closest, I think, 38% was where we were at first, and then the next closest one was 17, 18%, something like that. And then below that, some didn't even break 10%, and they consistently were not breaking 10%. So round after round, speech after speech. Of course, we had the initial speech, and then after that, it was a variety of messages, just 1 minute to give to the delegates to basically say to them, this is a big deal on 2 levels. One is, of course, I want to make it out as the only nominee, but the second thing would be when I come out as the only nominee, I have the full weight of the state Republican Party behind me, and that's a big deal. It helps us on multiple levels. But there were a few, actually 3 of my opponents, one who'd already been dismissed, 2 others that endorsed another individual in the race, trying to actually not support the other individual in the race, but actually to derail my capacity to get to the 60%. But even in spite of those, what I would consider shenanigans, they did not prevail.
Shenanigans.
It was shenanigans. It was just like, why are you two? So these two of them are still on the ballot for gathering signatures.
Yeah.
They both endorsed somebody else in the race, and I'm like, that doesn't really look very good. If you're endorsing somebody else, yet you're still going to be on the primary ballot, do you really believe this person that did make it out of convention, that this person's the right one or not? Or is that just shenanigans? And it was shenanigans.
Yeah.
So with that, we still got to the 61.5%. We are, and I'll say to the delegates, thank you for your support. We're honored to have that support, and we intend to carry that momentum since convention, which has been, I think, now almost 2 weeks, that we're intending to carry that momentum and that the wind in our sails to a successful conclusion.
So do you feel like the wind's in your sails?
Yes, actually, and I don't know if I should call you Senator Johnson, my friend John, and so on. Yeah. So here I guess it's John, and I'm just Mike too. But as colleague senators, it's a privilege working with you. But yeah, we just found out we got the Fraternal Order Police endorsement. Really honored to have that. Oil and Gas Worker Association.
I just noticed that one too.
Have endorsed us as well. And what you know, and what I know as well, is I've got a number of not only state senators, state representatives, but a number of people who are prior elected officials and a number of other people, including sheriffs, that are endorsing us. And we'll release those little by little. But as our internal polling initially showed really good on this, and then in addition to internal polling, FEC filings recognized that we were the number 1 fundraiser in this campaign. Now we're down to 5 candidates.
So you've actually raised more money
than anybody else.
That's cool.
We're proud of that fact. Money is, of course, important in these races, but it also reflects support. The fact that a lot of people have got behind us, and in fact, it's not just dollars that we've raised, but also the number of people. We have more donors in our FEC filings than any of our opponents, reflecting there's a broad array of support out there. We're proud of that fact. It's the Dr. Mike message is we're there to serve the people, and we want to do it in an effective, civil, thoughtful fashion, and we'll bring that same modality and approach from the state legislature, where you and I have been privileged to work together for 4 years now, to the federal legislature, which is a very complicated and frankly uncivil place in many levels.
Right. Yeah. That's an interesting race. So at the convention, I noticed you had your whole family there.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, walking around with you, and
we had a daughter from out of town. She lives in Montana. We were there for she and her husband. Her husband was graduating from a Master's of Business Associate's degree, and so anyways, his MBA, he was going to get that, and so she came with 3 grandchildren, and we were able to have the grandbabies there too, along with my son, my daughter, my other daughter. So not the whole family. We've got 8 children, and they're kind of spread around, but we had a number of them there. And honestly, John, for us, these campaigns, it's a family affair, and I'm proud of the fact people ask me, what's the future of the Republican Party? Well, the future is bright if we're willing to bring our families along, to teach our children, share with our children, and help them understand these are important issues. And yes, have some fun with life and spend time doing other things, but we should spend time thinking about policy and politics and how do we work together to make things better. So the family was there, and we're grateful to have their participation on that big day.
Hey, we're going to take a break.
Excellent.
We'll be right back.
I'm sick and tired of illegal immigration and fentanyl flooding into our country.
We don't know who's coming to our country.
I'm worried about my grandkids.
I'm sick of inflation.
Biden's been worse than I could have imagined.
I'm tired of all the corruption in Washington.
They won't stop spending our money. I'm worried about the debt.
Gas, groceries, housing.
Everything. Just everything is more expensive.
I'm tired of all the empty promises. I want to see someone get into office that's going to make a difference.
Our country is not well, but I know a tough diagnosis doesn't mean a grim outcome. I'm Dr. Mike Kennedy. As a physician, I've dedicated my life to listening, diagnosing, and healing thousands in our state. I don't give up on my patients, and I will never give up on America. Our country's been so good to me. I grew up in poverty. My brother and I raked leaves, bussed tables, and collected cans to make extra money. I believe hard work cures a lot. I worked my way through college, became a doctor, and built my own practice to care for Utah families. I married Katrina. We have 8 children and 9 grandchildren, and they're counting on us to leave this country better than we found it. And nothing will stop me from doing that.
The home of a Utah state senator was vandalized. In retaliation, police say, for introducing a bill to ban transgender surgeries and puberty blockers for minors.
No matter the cost, I've protected our kids, defended your personal liberties, cut your taxes, and balanced the state budget. But the illness plaguing Washington is far worse. Our security, finances, and freedoms are eroded by the day. And the Washington elites and leftist media think conservatives like us are the disease. No, we are the cure. I've learned challenges don't define our fate. It's our response to them that matters most. I'm Mike Kennedy. Let's make America stronger than ever before.
Welcome back to PoliticIt. My friend Mike Kennedy's with us. Mike's running for CD3. So let's talk a little bit. We talked about the convention, but let's talk a little bit about policy. What are the issues that come up? Yeah, I mean, now you've run that whole campaign through the caucus system, right? What were the major touch points with people?
Over and over again, John, it's the border and it's the national debt. These are the 2 fundamental things. People constantly are talking about them, and I agree. Our number one crisis, the border security is a massive issue. Frankly, when I ran for U.S. Senate in 2018, it was an issue then. 6 years ago, it was an issue at that point. That was in the middle of Donald Trump's administration. It was a problem then, but it wasn't as bad of a problem then as it is now. It's so much worse thanks to the Biden administration and their feckless approach to the border. There is no border border at this point. People are washing themselves over the border and no accountability whatsoever. And why on earth is the Biden administration doing this? We do have concerns about some sort of plan or approach that they have as to this, but number one is Remain in Mexico needs to be legislated, that no one should cross into our country without some sort of vetting process.
Yeah, because this is a loophole that basically they apply for asylum. Under U.S. law, they're entitled to a hearing, right?
Right.
I mean, and I don't think we really should cut out asylum, right? But that Remain in Mexico simply says you're going to stay there until
that does two things. One is we are able to vet these people and decide if their asylum claim is meritorious or not. But I think, John, the more important thing is once we seal our southern border, Mexico's northern border, Mexico is incentivized to seal its southern border, and this constant flow of people across Mexico is reduced and eliminated.
Right, because they're going to have to keep them in Mexico.
Because they've got a dammed up group of people that are just stuck on the northern border, and Mexico is going to have to deal with them. At this point right now, and this is where I don't know all of the details, but almost assuredly that transit of human capital across Mexico, that there's somebody making money in terrible ways on those people as they transit Mexico. And so for us to seal our border and actually to have that Remain in Mexico policy is a massive incentive to Mexico to start doing its job, and that's to actually stop people flowing through its country as well. So Remain in Mexico, we need to work on asylee laws. Frankly, when it comes to our border, we need to seal the border. We need to work to make legal immigration easier than illegal immigration. And then finally, who knows how many people are in our country who have to deal with the 20, 30, 15 million. Who knows how many people that are in this country at this point. The reality is we don't even know how many are here illegally, and we'll have to deal with them, but not until the border is sealed. That is job number one. And here's what I get really disappointed with, John. As I said, 6 years ago, I was talking about this same thing in a federal race. Yeah. It's not fixed today. And you and I both know there are many things we could do to fix this. I'm a little concerned that when I go there, there's just no will to actually make this better. You and I in the state legislature and the state senate, we can actually do things and work things together. But you and I both know sometimes there are untouchable issues that nobody wants to deal with for one reason or another. And I'm afraid that 2 years from now, if I am your congressman and your good people are willing to support me in this, that I'm going to come back and say it's no different then 2 years from now than it is today, because there's not a will in the legislature to work on it. But I have a will, and I know others do have a will. We just need to have enough people to actually make a difference.
So you're actually going to try to do something?
I'm going to work on it. Absolutely, I will. I just need to find like-minded people who actually care about our border to work with us to make things.
So the second one you were talking about is the national debt.
National
right?
debt is a massive crisis in my mind. We have to work on that. The reality is economic collapse is on the horizon. Who knows when it could happen? And in fact, you and I, along with other legislators, have worked on that. Contingency planning was something that we passed in our last legislative session, that if the federal dollars that I don't want to see more federal dollars coming into the state. We have too many federal connections to our state entities to make them essentially what the federal government wants them to be. But these agencies that receive federal dollars in the state of Utah, they need to be on a contingency plan. What are you going to do if there's cuts or elimination of the flow of those federal funds? We've actually made plans for that. But when it comes to Washington, D.C., we cannot keep spending money the way that we do. And I'm incentivized and certainly focused on improving our national debt. There's no easy answer to that $34+ trillion that it's unimaginable how much money is out there already that we owe, but we can and should work on that. And there's ways for us to move that forward.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess the first step in that is just cut off the flow, right?
Stop spending so much crazy money. I mean, it's ridiculous. So when these omnibus bills, and you and I both have heard Senator Lee talking about these omnibus bills that intentionally are dropped on legislators' laps, the omnibus budget bill is there. Nobody has any capacity to read the whole thing. Then they're supposed to vote on it before they're supposed to go off to campaign and go on vacation get back to their constituents and do their jobs. It's intentional. Leadership is setting it up this way so that there's no choice but to either vote no and be in trouble with leadership, which is the right decision, or to vote yes and just let business as usual continue, where this constant credit card charging our grandchildren for these things that we're spending on today. So I've already committed over and over again on the campaign trail. If I don't have a chance to even read it, I'll vote no. I mean, that's true for you and I on the state legislative side, is if you're going to give me some junky bill, whatever it is, budget or otherwise, that I don't even have a chance to know what's in it, I'm not following the Nancy Pelosi approach of you have to vote for it to find out what's in it. We laughed at that in 2010 for Obamacare. Well, here we are 14 years later, and that's like business as usual in Washington, D.C., is just vote for it so you can find out what's in it and then be dismayed at whatever you've just voted for. If I don't have a chance to read it, I won't vote for it. So you're right. That's the first thing.
So now you're a doctor, right? And so healthcare spending is a
massive part of this.
Massive part of it, isn't it?
It is.
Nationwide. And, you know, I hear the arguments, you know, people need to have healthcare. We're a advanced civilization, right? But what do we do there?
That is an excellent question, because people over and over, they say this $34 trillion, how do we work on it? Well, number one, we have to stop making it worse. That's the first thing. Second thing, Medicare and Medicaid are two of the primary drivers of our national debt. And I get excited about that, John, because I see, as a family doctor on a regular basis, every week, I see waste in the system. And in fact, as a doctor moving into this opportunity to serve the people, I see where we could actually make amendments and adjustments to Medicare and Medicaid in such a way that the health care that is received by the individuals that need it, they still get everything that they need. But the waste, the fraud, the abuse, that's eliminated. And I, with reliability and credibility, could work with my legislative colleagues, and we could actually make changes, save billions of dollars, and not make any difference for the health care delivery that these people need. So Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid are driving these problems. And when we make changes in those areas, we can actually improve our national debt. At the same time, we're actually improving on the way that the health care is delivered to the people that receive Medicare and Medicaid.
Right. Yeah, that is such an issue.
It's a massive issue for the state as well as the federal government.
So, you know, the only disappointment I have in you running for this office is that we're going to lose you in the state Senate.
I feel sad about that as well. Yes.
So what motivates you, given the state of things there and the way things are going? What do you think Mike Kennedy can do to change things?
It is a great question to think about. Like a lot of people on the campaign trail, and there's a lot of good people in our country, they're kind of giving up on the process. They see it as so broken that there's just no hope for the process. And I'll just say, as an eternal optimist, and I'll be a little professionally personal with this, is when I walk in a room with a very sick patient with multiple medical problems, I'm seeing them for the first time, and I got to sort through, where are you at and how can I help you move forward? There are answers, John, for us. We can always improve. I don't care if somebody's got prostate cancer and diabetes and high blood pressure and they're elderly and they're struggling with knee pain and back pain and so on and so forth. I do this stuff on a regular basis. And as I hear from my patient and then try to get down to the base of, okay, of all these things that we need to work on, what's the most important thing that's doable, that's actually going to make a difference for you, something that I would offer to you and you would offer to me, and we're kind of working together on this. I look at our national politic, our political body in the same way. Is there's problems. I know. I feel like sometimes our federal government's on life support, and if we don't work on this and it codes or it starts to die or gasp or whatever is going to happen, then we lose the opportunity of generations. The United States of America is a beacon on the hill. If people complain about the United States, as I ask them, do you want to move to Russia? Would you like to go to Venezuela and live there? How about Cuba? You know, it's like there's a lot of problems all over the planet. And in spite of our problems here in our country, as well as elsewhere, the reality is we can work on these things, and I have hope that we can. And part of that is attitude, of showing up to Washington, D.C. with an attitude of understanding practicality, civility, and a willingness to work hard to move things. I just need to find like-minded people.
You've certainly been a model of that in the Senate. It seems like a lot of the really tough issues get dumped on you, right?
We've taken on some, both of us have.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure to do that. And actually, I think our legislative colleagues, House, Senate, working with the governor, these are good people. We have different opinions, including our Democrat friends.
Right.
I have a great deal of respect for many of them, actually all of them, I think, but they're different than we are, but they represent their constituents, so do you and I. And actually, we work together every chance we get, and most of the time we do work together.
So what's the trick on these hard issues? these difficult things that you've had to.
It's a great, well, so we got the state legislative things, but let's go to the border as an example of that.
Okay.
Is the border is a mess. I get that. But is there anybody in the federal legislature, 100 senators, 435 Congress people, is there anybody that can argue in favor of human trafficking at the border? Is there anybody that can argue in favor of illegal fentanyl coming across our border? I don't think there's a liberal Democrat or a conservative Republican, either one, that could argue in favor of human trafficking at the border. So as a common denominator, if we can argue about what to do about the border, but I think everybody should see that fentanyl and human trafficking need to be terminated. And there's ways to work on those as common ground. And starting with that, we can start to see other common ground and start working forward on it.
Well, and that comes back to what your analogy with treating a patient,
Absolutely.
Right? Say, where do we have commonality?
Yes.
Where do we start? It's important to start somewhere, right?
Yes, and when we start somewhere, for example, if I have a patient, like I said, with prostate cancer, high blood pressure, diabetes, back pain, knee pain, and let's say they're alcoholic and cigarettes addicted as well, and they're doing these things to hurt themselves, and I just say, okay, of these things, these are, and I in the doctor's office, and I feel like the legislature is the same way as I'm a fancy waiter, like patient X. I've got several options for you. Each one of these could make a difference. Let me explain the ways that they can make you better. Which one would you like to work on? And I feel like, John, for me, working in the federal legislature, it'd be the same thing. And now there may be unwilling partners, some people that don't have any interest in doing anything on this at all. Okay, then I'll just, we won't be able to work with you, but let me find people that are maybe naive and enough to believe that we can make this place better. And we find those common denominators that we can work on together and actually do move the ball forward, such that 2 years from now, when I'm back for re-election and I'm working with the people, hopefully you and I are going to be talking many more times between now and then, but I can give you a report that and everything is not all better, but we've made some improvements on some things.
And that's
let me tell you where they are. And it's been working I've been doing doctor work for 25 years, and I've seen it over and over again with people, is that when we want to work on common ground, yes, you don't want to quit smoking, I want you to quit smoking. If we're just going to fight about that, we won't get anything done today. But if you're willing to work on this other behavior, that's easier for you to give up on, and I can tell you how it's going to make a difference. All of a sudden, we've got common ground and we can work together. So I see most people as reasonable, although I'm afraid in Washington maybe there's a lot of unreasonable people. Yeah. But I have hope that we can actually work together and make the place better, not only for our benefit today, John, but for the great-grandchildren that you and I hope to have someday in our families.
Very good. Hey, we're out of time.
It's a pleasure being with you.
Why don't you make a pitch to the voters?
I will. The first thing I'd say is, look what I got for being here today. Is this amazing mug? I'm so proud. Probably the best thing I ever could have gotten on the campaign trail. So that's the first thing. But my name is Mike Kennedy. I'm running for CD3 to replace John Curtis in that seat, and I'd be honored to have your support. Mike Kennedy for Utah.com. That's Mike Kennedy, FOR, Utah.com. John, I've said that over and over again on the campaign trail, and I'll just say it'd be an honor to serve you as your federal legislator and also to serve you. Thank you very much for having me on today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Very good. Mike Kennedy. We'll see you guys next week.